killing of 77 people in twin terrorist attacks.
Terrorists with no emotions to life sentences. Crime doesn't just break laws, it shatters lives, communities, and sometimes entire nations. Some perpetrators burn their names into history, not through greatness, but through acts of senseless violence, terror, and hate. Tonight, we take you inside 10 shocking true crime cases, crimes that stunned the world, trials that gripped millions, and sentences that echoed justice. Case 1. Anders Breivik, convicted of terrorism and mass murder. Norway attacks, 2011. Anders Behring Breivik was convicted in Norway for one of the deadliest terrorist attacks in modern European history. A carefully planned campaign of mass murder that left 77 people dead and traumatized an entire nation. On July 22, 2011, Breivik detonated a massive car bomb outside government offices in Oslo, tearing apart concrete and shattering windows for city blocks. 8 people were killed instantly, including government officials and passersby. The explosion was only the opening act. Moments later, Breivik drove to Utøya Island, where young members of Norway's Labour Party were gathered at a summer camp. Dressed as a police officer, he gained access and began systematically shooting teenagers, most between 14 and 17 years old, as they tried to flee, hide, or swim for their lives. Survivors and witnesses later described the horror of those moments, explosions in the capital, then the sound of gunfire echoing through the woods as youth scattered screaming. Many were chased down even as they fell, trembling and terrified, while others hid as their friends were mowed down. Breivik was arrested hours later, ending his rampage. At his trial in Oslo District Court, one of the central questions was whether he was sane, capable of understanding his actions, or legally insane. Court-appointed psychiatrists initially disagreed.
I acknowledge the acts, but I do not plead guilty, and I claim that I was doing it in self-defense.
But ultimately, the court found Breivik legally sane, holding him fully responsible for his crimes. The verdict came on 24th August 2012, after a 10-week trial covered by hundreds of journalists. Breivik's defense argued insanity, but his own words and writings worked against him. In court, he had declared that his actions were necessary to defend Europe from multiculturalism.
But this doesn't mean that I won't keep fighting for a national socialist takeover of Norway and the West.
Even at times demanding acquittal or death rather than imprisonment. The presiding judges sentenced him to 21 years of preventive detention
for a term of 21 years and a minimum period of 10 years. See the Penal Code Section 39E, first and second subsections.
Norway's maximum criminal sentence, with the possibility of indefinite extension if he is still deemed dangerous.
The defendant, after serving a sentence of 21 years in prison, still remain a very dangerous man.
Under the unique Norwegian system of forbearing, Breivik must undergo regular evaluations to determine if he remains a threat. Only then could his detention be extended beyond the nominal 21-year term.
To 21 years in prison for the killing of 77 people in twin terrorist attacks in July last year.
As the sentence was read, Breivik remained impassive, staring straight ahead. Many families in the courtroom, still haunted by lost children, siblings, and friends, expressed relief that he would likely never be released. In a country with no death penalty and a focus on rehabilitation, that 21-year sentence represents the harshest punishment possible. Today, more than a decade after the massacre, Norway continues to grapple with the legacy of that day. In memorials, in the stories of survivors, and in legal challenges as Breivik himself seeks to contest conditions of his confinement. A reminder that justice and trauma can endure long after the verdict is delivered. From a far-right extremist who dismantled a peaceful nation's sense of safety to a bomber who brought terror to American streets, our next story moves from Norway's fjords to the heart of New York City. Case 2. Ahmad Khan Rahimi, convicted of terrorism and use of weapons of mass destruction. Chelsea bombings, 2016. Ahmad Khan Rahimi, later dubbed the Chelsea bomber,
The trial began today for the man accused of setting off a bomb in New York City and attempting to bomb a charity race along the Jersey Shore.
Carried out a coordinated bombing campaign across multiple locations in New York City and New Jersey in September 2016. Investigators labeled an act of terrorism inspired by extremist organizations.
Prosecutors filed federal terrorism charges against him.
Rahimi, a naturalized U.S. citizen from New Jersey, planted multiple improvised explosive devices in public spaces. On September 17, 2016, one of the bombs detonated on West 23rd Street in Manhattan's Chelsea neighborhood, injuring more than 30 people. Lacerations, shattered glass injuries, and severe trauma rippled through the crowded street. Another pressure cooker bomb, discovered 4 blocks away, was defused safely. Rahimi had also placed explosives in Seaside Park, New Jersey, on the same day, timed to explode near a Marine Corps charity race, though no spectators were injured due to delays. The next day, Rahimi was spotted sleeping in a doorway in Linden, New Jersey. When police approached, he opened fire, injuring multiple officers before being shot and subdued.
Because authorities say he shot at police officers 2 days later during his arrest.
During his arrest, authorities found a handwritten journal on his person, referencing extremist leaders and bomb components. In October 2017, after a 2-week trial in Manhattan federal court, Rahimi was convicted on all 8 counts, related to use and attempted use of weapons of mass destruction, bombing a public place, and other terrorism charges.
8 charges against him, including using a weapon of mass destruction and bombing a public place. Now that has a maximum sentence of life in prison.
During the trial, prosecutors described Rahimi's bombs as designed to cause maximum harm and cited evidence of his extremist inspirations. His defense did not present a counter-terror motive, and Rahimi himself did not testify. On February 13, 2018, U.S. District Judge Richard M. Berman sentenced Rahimi to life in prison. The mandatory sentence for his convictions, plus 5 years of supervised release and a restitution order of over $560,000 for victims. Victims and witnesses described in court the moment of explosion, the roar of pressure, the instant chaos, the smell of smoke, and the screams of those running for cover. Rahimi's sentencing marked a moment of solemn vindication for families and survivors who had endured weeks of recovery and psychological trauma. From homemade bombs on crowded city streets, we now move to another marathon event, this one ending in tragedy at the Boston Marathon, where 2 brothers unleashed terror on runners and spectators alike. Case 3. Dzhokhar Tsarnaev, convicted of federal terrorism and use of a weapon of mass destruction. Boston Marathon bombing, 2013. Dzhokhar Tsarnaev was convicted of federal terrorism for one of the most shocking attacks on American soil since 9/11, a bombing that turned a celebration of endurance into a scene of blood, smoke, and chaos. On April 15, 2013, the Boston Marathon was nearing its finish line. Crowds lined Boylston Street, cheering exhausted runners home. At 2:49 p.m., a pressure cooker bomb, packed with nails and ball bearings, detonated near the finish line. Seconds later, a second bomb exploded just down the street. The blast killed 3 people, including 8-year-old Martin Richard, and injured more than 260 others, many suffering catastrophic amputations. The street became unrecognizable, limbs torn away, blood pooling on the pavement, first responders rushing into smoke and screams. The attackers were brothers, Tamerlan and Dzhokhar Tsarnaev. Over the next 4 days, the city of Boston was locked down as the manhunt intensified. Tamerlan was killed during a violent shootout with police.
Shots fired at Watertown police officers. We need assistance immediately. Shots fired again. Shots fired again. All officers responded. We have 1 body pinned down, and we have another one on the run. Shots fired.
Dzhokhar escaped briefly before being found bleeding and hiding inside a boat in a suburban backyard. During interrogation, Dzhokhar admitted his role. Prosecutors later revealed that the brothers were radicalized online, inspired by extremist propaganda, and sought revenge against the United States. Dzhokhar's federal trial began in January 2015. Survivors testified about life-altering injuries, lost legs, permanent trauma, survivors' guilt. Graphic images of the bombing were shown to the jury. Prosecutors called the attack cold, calculated terrorism. The defense acknowledged Joe Carr's role, but argued he was heavily influenced by his older brother, portraying him as immature and easily manipulated. On April 8, 2015, the jury found Dzhokhar Tsarnaev guilty on all 30 counts, including use of a weapon of mass destruction resulting in death. In May 2015, after emotional victim impact statements, the jury sentenced him to death by lethal injection. As the sentence was read, Tsarnaev stood motionless. Some victims wept. Others stared him down in silence. The courtroom was filled with a mix of closure and unresolved pain. Years later, appeals and legal challenges continued, but Tsarnaev remains on federal death row. From pressure cooker bombs at a marathon finish line, we now move to a different kind of terror, a rented truck turned into a weapon on the streets of New York City. Case 4, Sayfullo Saipov. Convicted of terrorism and mass murder, New York City truck attack, 2017. Sayfullo Saipov was convicted of terrorism after turning a rented pickup truck into a weapon of mass murder, killing innocent pedestrians in broad daylight along a busy New York City bike path. On October 31st, 2017, Halloween afternoon, Saipov drove a rented Home Depot truck onto the Hudson River Greenway in Lower Manhattan. He deliberately swerved onto the bike path, mowing down cyclists and joggers over nearly a mile. 8 people were killed. Dozens more were injured. Witnesses describe bodies thrown into the air.
And when I go down, I see 2 gentlemen laying right there in the bike lane with tire marks across their body, and you could tell that they're not here no more.
Bicycles crushed, screams echoing as the truck continued forward. After crashing into a school bus.
Can you call 911? Oh my God. Oh my God. Okay, I need an ambulance right here.
Saipov exited the vehicle holding fake guns, shouting Allahu Akbar, attempting to provoke police into killing him. Instead, an officer shot him in the abdomen, ending the attack. Investigators later found ISIS propaganda on his phone.
Been planning this for a number of weeks. He did this in the name of ISIS.
Saipov admitted he planned the attack for weeks, choosing Halloween to maximize casualties. Saipov's federal trial began in January 2023. Prosecutors played chilling dash cam footage, showed crushed bicycles, and read testimony from families who lost loved ones. Saipov showed no remorse. At times, he smiled in court. In January 2023, the jury found Saipov guilty on all counts, including terrorism resulting in death. The jury could not unanimously agree on the death penalty. As a result, the judge sentenced Saipov to life in prison without the possibility of parole, plus additional consecutive sentences. As the sentence was announced, Saipov remained expressionless. Victims' families described a hollow sense of justice, relief he would never be free, but pain that no sentence could undo the loss. But doesn't always come with ideology alone. Our next case reveals how rage, recklessness, and violence turned a Christmas parade into a massacre. Case 5. Darrell Edward Brooks. Convicted of intentional homicide and domestic terrorism. Waukesha parade attack, 2021. Darrell Edward Brooks Jr. was convicted of intentionally driving an SUV through a Christmas parade, killing 6 people and injuring dozens more in a horrifying act of mass violence. On November 21, 2021, families lined the streets of Waukesha, Wisconsin for a holiday parade. Suddenly, a red SUV plowed through marching bands, dance teams, and children. 6 people were killed. More than 60 were injured, many of them children. Brooks fled police after a domestic dispute and deliberately chose the parade route. Accelerating through barricades, swerving to hit victims, Brooks chose to represent himself.
I would like to represent myself pro per.
What does that mean to you, sir?
Again, because I've already said it on record, to represent myself as a sovereign citizen.
Turning the courtroom into chaos, he interrupted judges, argued with witnesses, objected nonsensically, and repeatedly demanded mistrials. Jurors watched graphic parade footage. Parents testified through tears. First responders described children lying motionless on the pavement. In October 2022, Brooks was found guilty on all 76 charges, including 6 counts of first-degree intentional homicide. In November 2022, he was sentenced to 6 consecutive life sentences without parole.
That is 762 and a half years of initial confinement,
plus hundreds of additional years. As the sentence was read, Brooks smirked, rolled his eyes, and shook his head. Behavior that further enraged victims' families. From a parade-turned-killing ground, we now return to a grocery store, where a single gunman would unleash terror in minutes. Case 6. Ahmad al-Aliwi al-Issa, convicted of first-degree murder and attempted murder. Boulder supermarket shooting, 2021.
Police in the U.S. state of Colorado have identified the man suspected of shooting up a supermarket in Boulder, killing at least 10 people.
Ahmad al-Issa walked into a King Soopers grocery store in Boulder, Colorado. Armed with a rifle, within minutes 10 people were dead, including police officer Eric Talley, who ran toward gunfire.
We know of 10 fatalities at the scene, including one of our Boulder PD officers by the name of Eric Talley.
Alyssa was shot and captured alive. For nearly 3 years, Alyssa was deemed mentally incompetent to stand trial, delaying justice and devastating families. In 2024, he was finally ruled competent. In September 2024, Alyssa was convicted of 10 counts of first-degree murder and dozens of attempted murder charges. He was sentenced to 10 consecutive life sentences without parole, plus 1,334 additional years. He showed little emotion as the sentence was read. Sometimes, terror isn't driven by mass shootings or bombs. Sometimes it hides in the shadows, striking one victim at a time. Case 7. Ali Muhammad Brown, convicted of terrorism-motivated murder across multiple states. 2014. Ali Muhammad Brown wasn't chasing fame, money, or personal revenge. He claimed he was waging war, one random execution at a time. Ali Muhammad Brown's killing spree stretched across 2 states, leaving 4 innocent men dead, all selected at random.
Please give him the maximum of whatever you can do.
His motive, he later claimed, was retaliation for U.S. military actions overseas. On April 27, 2014, Brown shot and killed Brendan Tevlin, an 18-year-old high school student, outside a mall in New Jersey. Tevlin was sitting in his car when Brown approached and fired multiple rounds at close range. There was no argument, no warning, no connection. Brown calmly walked away.
Animal called what he did a mistake. It was no mistake.
Days later, in Seattle, Washington, Brown struck again. On June 1st, 2014, he shot Ahmed Saeed, a 39-year-old parking enforcement officer, in the back of the head while Saeed was eating lunch in his car. Surveillance footage later showed Brown walking up to the vehicle and firing without hesitation. 3 days later, Brown murdered Isaiah Turner, a 28-year-old college student, outside his apartment. Turner had just parked his car. Brown approached, shot him, and fled.
Please give him the maximum of whatever you can do.
The 4th victim, Dwight Council, a 40-year-old father of 2, was gunned down while sitting in his car. Each killing followed the same cold pattern: approach, execute, disappear. Brown was arrested after a nationwide manhunt. During interrogation, he openly admitted to the murders and his motive.
Forgiveness from the family. Asking they can forgive me if they can. If not, just let me rot in hell if you want to.
He told detectives he was acting in retaliation for U.S. drone strikes and military operations in Muslim countries. He described the murders as justified killings and claimed he was attempting to send a message. Investigators later discovered extremist material, handwritten notes, and ideological writings supporting his claims. Brown faced prosecution in 2 states. In New Jersey, prosecutors sought the death penalty for the murder of Brendan Tevlin. The courtroom was filled with grieving family members, parents forced to listen as the final moments of their son's life were reconstructed in chilling detail. Brown showed no remorse. At times he appeared proud. The defense argued insanity and ideological delusion. The jury rejected it. In 2018, Brown was sentenced in New Jersey to life in prison without the possibility of parole.
He was sentenced to life without parole. The sentence he received today of 93 years is to be served consecutively.
In Washington state, he later received an additional sentence of 93 years in prison for the murders of Saeed, Turner, and Council. The judge described Brown as a continuing threat to humanity. Brown smiled faintly as the sentence was read, but some killers don't act out of ideology. They explode in raw, uncontrolled violence, turning an entire city into a crime scene. Case 8. Maxim Gelman, convicted of mass murder and attempted murder. New York City subway rampage, 2011. Maxim Gelman's rampage lasted less than 2 days, but left an entire city in fear and blood.
He knew what he did was wrong, but he simply didn't care.
On February 11th, 2011, Gelman began what would become a 28-hour stabbing spree across Brooklyn and Manhattan. It started inside an apartment. Gelman stabbed his former girlfriend's mother, Anna Kaminsky, to death. When her daughter intervened, he stabbed her as well, leaving her critically injured. Gelman fled into the night, armed with knives, hammers, and improvised weapons.
He takes out this big knife, looks me dead in the eye.
Over the next day, he attacked random strangers, targeting people on sidewalks, in apartment buildings, and eventually inside New York City subway stations. One victim, Martha Rivera, was pushed on the subway tracks and stabbed. Another man was attacked on a crowded platform as commuters screamed and ran for safety. By the end of the rampage, 4 people were dead and at least 5 others seriously injured.
I was like, "Where's Elena?" She's like, "She's at work." I'm like, "Where does she work?" And she wouldn't tell me. She was like, "Why are you asking all these questions?"
Gelman was finally subdued at Times Square after attacking a subway station clerk. Police used tasers repeatedly before restraining him. Video of the arrest, Gelman screaming, bleeding, and thrashing, quickly spread nationwide.
I got back in the car. I backed up. Then I was like, maybe she's not dead.
Gelman's trial was chaotic and disturbing. He frequently screamed in court, hurled obscenities, and attempted to disrupt proceedings. At one point, he had to be physically restrained.
I jumped onto the moving train in between cars.
Psychiatrists testified that Gelman suffered from severe mental illness, but prosecutors argued he was legally sane and fully aware of his actions. Survivors testified about permanent injuries, both physical and psychological. Some said they could no longer ride the subway without panic attacks. In 2014, Gelman was convicted of multiple counts of first-degree murder and attempted murder. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. As the judge spoke, Gelman stared blankly as Kauk Elslake, offering no apology, no explanation.
Police officer came out, he pulled out the gun. Cop was a big guy, you know, pointed the gun at me, but I was still stabbing the guy, so he put the gun away back in his holster.
Transition to next case, but while some killers snap suddenly, others plan for decades, driven by hatred that refuses to die. Case 9. Joseph Paul Franklin, convicted white supremacist serial killer, 1977 to 1980. Joseph Paul Franklin believed he was fighting a race war, and he was willing to kill anyone who symbolized a future he hated.
No, not at all. No, I can see now I was wrong. It's wrong.
Franklin was a white supremacist serial killer responsible for at least 8 murders across the United States during the late 1970s. His victims included interracial couples, Jewish men, and civil rights figures. One of his most notorious crimes was the assassination attempt on civil rights leader Vernon Jordan, who survived despite being shot. Franklin traveled constantly, using fake identities, staying in cheap motels, and stalking targets selected purely based on race. Franklin was eventually captured after a nationwide investigation tied ballistic evidence to multiple murders. In court, Franklin showed open hatred, frequently interrupting proceedings with racist statements. He was convicted of multiple murders, including the killing of Gerald Gordon, a black man shot while jogging. Franklin received multiple death sentences. After decades on death row, he was executed by lethal injection in Missouri in 2013. Witnesses reported that Franklin declined to make a final statement. He died silently. The man who spent his life preaching hatred, leaving the world without words.
Once I started doing it and showed them how, other white supremacists would do the same thing, follow suit.
Our final case doesn't involve terrorism, ideology, or mass murder, but it proves how a single moment of rage can destroy countless lives. Case 10. Michael David Dunn, convicted of first-degree murder, Jordan Davis killing, 2012. Michael David Dunn fired 10 shots into a car full of teenagers over loud music. On November 23, 2012, at a gas station in Jacksonville, Florida, Dunn argued with teenagers about loud music playing from their SUV. The argument escalated. Dunn pulled a gun and fired 10 rounds into the vehicle.
Oh my God, somebody's shooting!
Jordan Davis, just 17 years old, was killed. His friends survived, traumatized witnesses to their friend's death. Dunn fled the scene, later stopping at a hotel where he ordered pizza and watched the news. Dunn claimed self-defense, stating he believed the teens had a weapon. No weapon was ever found. Text messages revealed Dunn's racial hostility, severely undermining his defense. Jordan's parents sat silently as surveillance footage and autopsy photos were shown. In 2014, Dunn was convicted of first-degree murder. He was sentenced to life in prison without parole, plus 90 additional years for attempted murder.
Mr. Dunn, you having been found guilty by a jury of your peers on February the 15th, 2014 as to counts 2, 3, and 4 of the indictment attempted.
As the sentence was read, Jordan's mother wept. Dunn stared straight ahead. These 10 cases span decades, states, and motivations, from ideological hatred to personal grievance, public spectacle to private rage. Some ended with execution, some with life behind bars, and some with no trial at all. In every case, however, the pain left behind was real, lasting, and resonant. As we reflect on these tragedies, we honor the memories of those lost, the resilience of survivors, and the tireless work of investigators, advocates, and families seeking justice. Crime changes lives, but so too does the pursuit of truth and accountability. In memory of the victims, never forgotten. Like the video, share it with someone who follows true crime, and subscribe, because the next case is already waiting in a courtroom somewhere, and you don't want to miss it.